In this session of Writing from the Reader's Perspective, we're going to talk about editing writing from the reader's perspective, and that's a two-part process. One is getting the reader's perspective, either from yourself or from a peer, and we're going to talk about peer comments right now, and then the author doing the editing, although the peer may help with suggestions. A reminder, the problem is that authors know their intended meanings, but the author has both what's in their mind as they write and the text on the page. The reader has only what's on the page. Authors generally don't consciously analyze text for reader expectations. Skilled writers probably do these analyses automatically, but not necessarily consciously. And what I want to do is have you thinking about how to consciously analyze text for reader expectations. So the goal is to learn to read your own or others' text from a reader's perspective. It's not important to analyze for grammar or style unless the grammar affects meaning. Most of the time, grammatical errors won't, and so you don't need to worry about them. That's good work for copy editors. And don't just reword for an author. Ask questions about the meaning the author intended, and then the author works on the edits. I have some sample questions here. You can pause the video here to look at these samples, but I won't go through them all now. There are many possible questions, and it helps to have examples. So in this part of the course, I'm walking you through some of what I do in peer editing sessions myself. So here's a sample of text. It's about a short story by Ray Bradbury. And what I would do to start with is to read the passage. So I'll read it now. And this is a quick read to get a sense of what's in here. And what I want to have at the end is a sense of where this is going. So now I start marking it up for myself. And I can use color if I want, or black and white. I'm going to start by looking at what's in the stress positions. That's often the place that I start. So warning about humanity's future, nuclear holocaust, dying setting of the story, humans having been annihilated, simple future life. From the quote, birthday, marriage, water, gas, and light bills, still alive, just sleeping, tired, nuclear holocaust. You get a stress position before a colon, especially when a sentence follows, and this is a quote here. So we have house left standing, radioactive glow, which could be seen for miles, nuclear bomb, and important at the time and into the future. So the stress positions tell a story about warning, holocaust, dying setting, annihilation. Then there's this middle section where it's a simple future life, birthday, water, gas, and light bills, still alive and just sleeping or tired. So this is the contrast, that this is what I'm taking away as a reader. And then we get to a nuclear holocaust, only a few things left standing, the radioactive glow, nuclear bomb. And then finally the warning. If I think about what is the issue and the point, this is, I would pick this first sentence as the issue, what this paragraph is broadly about, literary devices to convey a warning about humanity's future, and then what's the point? You could argue that's the point. Or you could argue that this warning is the point. The warning here at the end, that specifically what the warning is about nuclear war. So the stress positions make some sense to me in context. Notice I've done all of that pretty quickly. It only took me a few minutes to think through that. And now I want to look at So now I want to look at the whose stories really quickly. Bradbury, warning, he, the gods, Bradbury, Mr. Featherstone, today, insurance, that's this middle portion that's about sort of normal life. He, radioactive glow, and Bradbury. So Bradbury's clearly the Who story in a lot of this. There's this middle section where it's about other people. The forward leans, I'm not going to worry too much about yet. I'll come back to them a bit later. What I want to think about now is, given what this paragraph is about, the issue that I've decided is the issue, the author may not agree, and the point and the stress positions seem to fit pretty well. But now I want to start looking at individual sentences and thinking about whether the stress positions make sense. So first one, Bradbury cleverly uses, so forward lean uses to convey his warning about humanity's future. That seems stress-worthy. The warning, here's a backward link, is the nuclear holocaust. That also seems stress-worthy. He, referring clearly to Bradbury, uses imagery, okay, to describe dreadful and dying setting of the story. Now here's one where I might think about, is that a stress position? Is that stress-worthy? Could it be a forward lean? Maybe it's the dreadful and dying setting of the story is cleverly created with imagery. So maybe it's the imagery that we want in the stress position, a literary device. And so here I might say, you've used dreadful and dying setting of the story as the stress in the stress position. Is that what you really want to stress? Because it seems like imagery, which links back to literary devices, might be what you want to stress. And at that point, the author can go, oh yes, this is really about the imagery. And so how do I move this information forward? And is this really about Bradley? Is that the Who story? Clearly it makes sense as Who story, but maybe we want the dreadful and dying setting, the setting of the story being Who story. And only the author can tell us. And then the author will need some skills at reorganizing sentences to realize, how would I change this into a Who story? The dreadful and dying setting of the story is cleverly used by Bradbury to develop imagery. Again, as an editor, you aren't necessarily suggesting changes. The more time you spend suggesting changes, the less time the author has to think about it. And so as a peer reviewer, you should be asking questions. So questions: is this Who story you want? Is this what you wanted in the stress position? This also seems like it might be stress-worthy. This is a quote from the story, so we won't worry too much about that. Bradbury, Whose story makes the setting seem as if it is a simple future life. So is that stress-worthy? It seems like it could be. Again, I might ask, is something else in here stress-worthy? And is this the thing you want to stress? Is this taking us, because simple future life doesn't connect well back to a warning. So maybe there's a possibility of a change there, although I'm not sure what it would be. This is quotes, so we won't worry about that. He, do we really want Bradbury, or maybe we want the story to make it seem, or the text makes it seem, as opposed to him? Do we want to focus on the story or on Bradley? Bradley's using literary devices. Maybe it's the literary devices. And this now gives me a suggestion up here. You've got, so as an author, you've got Bradley as often Whose story, but do you want it to be sometimes the literary devices are the story, or the text is the story, and sometimes do you want the warning to be Whose story? Here, warning is Whose story, but much of the time it's he. So he makes it seem, the text makes it seem, as if people are still alive and are just sleeping or tired. This does seem stress-worthy. It connects back to some other stress positions. But perhaps it should be, he also makes it seem as if people are just sleeping or tired instead of and still alive. Perhaps we want are still alive as opposed to just sleeping or tired as the stress position. Again, the author needs to think about, yeah, what do I want to stress? That they're still alive or that they're just sleeping or tired? Then he, again, do we want a literary device to do it, or perhaps the crucial part is whose story? A crucial part clarifies or makes it apparent that there was a nuclear holocaust. Or a crucial part of the text makes it apparent there was a nuclear holocaust. And here, this seems stress-worthy to me, so I probably wouldn't question whether that's what the author wants in the stress position. But arguably, you might want literary devices in the stress position. So then he reveals that a nuclear holocaust occurred using a crucial literary device in the story, or using a literary device in the story, and then off we go into another quote. Here's radioactive glow. So is that what we want as whose story? And then is that what should be in the stress position? Okay, at this point, I hope you're getting a sense of what would go on. I would end here with, is that the point? It makes sense to me that that would be the point. Is that the point that the author intended? And it's worth a question. And then, is this what should be in the stress position? I might suggest that based on the rest of the paragraph, that the author think about whether this ought to be in the stress position. Bradbury delivers a warning that was important at the time and into the future about the risks of a nuclear war. So maybe the risks of a nuclear war are something that ought to be in the stress position. So as you're going through these, you first want to have a little time on your own to mark up, to read through, and then mark up and see what are the stress positions and the whose stories. That's usually where I go. As I'm going, I think about backward links. They were pretty clear in this paragraph, and so I didn't worry too much about them. And then I start asking questions about, was this stress-worthy? Would something else be more stress-worthy? And those questions can be asked anywhere. Maybe if this paragraph is about literary devices, then the literary devices should be in the stress position, in which case Bradbury cleverly delivers a warning about humanity's future using literary devices. And that makes a different structure of the paragraph. As I said, the possible questions are infinite. And so now think about questions you may want to get back to me, and then questions you might want to ask your readers, your authors.